Meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We may recess into closed session under sections 551.071 through 551.083. At this time, please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let the record reflect that all members, save and except John Hunt, are present. First item on our agenda was special recognition. That part of that group could not meet tonight, so we're moving that item to the December meeting. I think that everyone will be available at that meeting. Item 4 on the agenda is a thank you card from Ms. Knappenberger. Did everyone have a chance to read that? Yes. And I thank the school district community for the support of that family during that hard time. Next up is item number 5, public comments on the agenda. Michael, did anybody?
Agenda item.
It's on the agenda. I think you want. I'll think.
9A. Okay.
Mr. Bennett, you signed up for agenda item 9A. We'll just have you speak right before that item, if that's okay, rather than do it now.
I appreciate it.
Because it's germane to that. And we have no one who's signed up on any other item. So with that, we'll move to item number 6, general public comments. Michael, did you know if there anyone signed up for any other comments? Sorry to make you.
That was it.
Next item is item 7, the consent agenda. All items listed under this subheading will be adopted with one motion unless they are removed from the consent agenda by a trustee for discussion. If you have any questions on any items, can you speak about them at this time? Does anyone have any issues they want to remove and vote on separately with regard to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept all items on the consent agenda.
Motion by Ham.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bisco. Any further discussion on those items? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to old business. We have no items of old business to discuss. Then we'll move on to new business. This item is to discuss and consider votes cast for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. Mr. Bennett, if you'd like to come forward at this time and present.
Is it okay? Okay, good. Acting President Clark, Superintendent G, Board. I think you all may know me. I'm tonight, you know I'm a supporter of Mr. Losada's, but I'm not here to talk about Mr. Losada. My name is Daniel J. Bennett. I'm from White Settlement, Texas. I was a 2017 candidate for the TAD board back then. I just want to talk about the current slate of candidates and how we vet them. I have been working very hard to get these candidates vetted so you can get information into your hands so you can make a decision that best represents your citizenry in your school district. A gentleman named Chandler Crouch reached out to all 9 candidates wanting to get interviews, and only 3 responded out of the 9. I won't tell you the reasons for not responding, but some were, I guess, reasonable. Some were just, I don't want to interview, which is fine. Last night, I was at Kennedale, and I spoke on behalf of Mr. Losada, who's still on vacation, and Councilwoman Lee made a motion that they wanted Mike Lehman. And then another council lady asked, well, what's your purpose for Mr. Lehman? Well, I worked under him. He's a good guy and he's honest. Well, we want that in every public official. We want goodness, because we want to propagate that. We want wisdom, and we want honesty. Well, I was at Mansfield ISD last night. Raul Rodriguez, who worked very hard to get Mr. Lehman on the board, basically said Mr. Lehman has never once come to their meetings and spoke to them. And that's been an issue I've had since 2017. That has to end. So Mr. Lehman did not get any Mansfield ISD votes last night. So I don't believe he has a path to victory. Mr. Michael Gillespie and John Fagan, I'd like to talk about them because they were former board members for 4 years. I don't know either personally, but what I do know is back in September of 2016, 2011, Tad Stunner started shopping for software. And these two individuals were on that board for 4 years. And when Amentum went live, they were responsible. It sat in their lap for the train wreck that happened under that software. Thomson Reuters had 600 items that was needed within that software to meet state code. And then Tidwell and Weaver did an audit, cost $200,000, and it said basically Mr. Law was incompetent. But it didn't mention the board. But the oversight, Mr. Law's action wasn't there. And I don't think anybody who's attached to that software should get a vote. That includes Mr. Pothoff, Mr. Molyneux, Mr. Gillespie, Mr. Fagan. Now, Mr. O'Donnell, he was involved in that software. Mr. Lehman wasn't. And why I bring that up to you tonight. Harris, I don't want to bore you with the company's name. I was just reading it. I just got this information this evening. There is tax software that was purchased from Thomas Reuters. When they purchased it, Harris is a corporation. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it's incorporated. But they purchased Thomas Reuters tax software, and Amentum went with it. So now that hands of that software is in somebody else's hands. And as you know, when software gets sold, it may not be supported. We are following the path we did back in 2011, 10, 12, 13, and 14. And I've said enough. That happened this evening. I already contacted Mayor Newton, Mayor Jacob, Mayor Hunter, HBISD, board president. I'm contacting you tonight, letting you know that software has now been sold. And the taxing entity may be coming out with their hands out again. Don't know if that's going to happen. I think we need to get Mr. Law on record, strike a letter out to him asking how the sale will affect our appraisal district, because you need to know. I hope it doesn't affect us at all. I know the software doesn't work, and I believe that's why Thomas Reuters sold it. We're the only, besides Riverside County, California, the only people that use that software in the entire United States. And it's never worked from day one. And I'm hoping that you won't support the people to put that software in place. And I would look at other directions for other candidates to place your votes. And I hope you will consider Mr. Lasada. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look over the packet with regard to the candidates? As a district, we have 24 votes that we can place. We can place on multiple candidates. We can place on one. There was a video supplied by HEB that talked about for smaller entities like us, it might make more sense to place our votes in a single person versus splitting it. It might make a difference for candidates that are in the 5th and 6th positions. It might make a switch, it might not. But does anyone have any preferences with regard to any of the candidates and want to discuss how we allocate our votes?
I believe Mr. Lasada is the only person that has come by to visit us.
I agree.
And I'll throw another name, Catherine Weileman, she's formerly on the council in Arlington.
Yeah.
She has a significant experience historically from what I know in terms of being involved in transportation issues in the county. She served for a long time in Arlington. She was nominated by Tarrant County, and they're a big block, but they're not as big as Arlington and Mansfield if you put them together. There was an interview that you could find online of Mr. Lasada just to get some idea of his background. I hope everyone had a chance to listen to that. But having said that, does anyone want to make any motions with regard to casting our ballots?
I'll make a motion to cast 24 votes for Mr. Lasada and sign the resolution declaring the results.
Motion by Mr. Ham for 24 votes to be allocated to Mr. Lasada. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Carruthers. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, I vote no on that motion. So we have 5-1. And I'm making a note on here that there are 24 for Mr. Lasada.
President, may I reapproach the podium just for 30 seconds before I leave?
No, that's
So
not.
unorthodox.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Ms. Waterman's a good candidate. I just wanted to say that. I don't know her personally. And I just thank you. I thank you for it.
All right, that brings us to the next item for new business is the first reading of TASB Policy Update 114 affecting local policies. It's not an action item, but does anyone have any discussion about any of the items?
The items, we need to have more detail for it before next meeting.
The only item I noted is that there seems to be a change as it relates to security officers and security personnel. I think historically, we've seen that as a position for superintendent administration. I went to the TASB legal seminar last week, and it seems as if the idea is that the legislature wants that responsibility to be put primarily on the board, establishing the duties and responsibilities for security officers, which seems a little unusual. I mean, we're not in the day-to-day operations of the school, but that seems consistent with what the legislature has been doing in terms of providing additional responsibilities on school boards for whatever reason. And we may need to look at how we accomplish that, whether it be recommendations and working with the superintendent. I don't think that we can delegate that responsibility. So I think we'll have to have some discussions about the application of those once we get to that.
Is that a recommendation from the board to the superintendent? Or is the superintendent bringing a candidate to us with that?
Well, I'm not sure it reads as in terms of personnel. It reads in terms of duties and responsibilities. I mean, and they went through a long dissertation about the security personnel, what they can and can't do. You know, for example, you could use an SRO to assist with traffic in the morning, but you can't use an SRO for primarily discipline issues, maintaining discipline issues within campuses, which again is a shift in, you know, having adults there to try to help maintain a structured environment. But I would encourage you to make sure you read that and look at those, because I think we'll have to take on that responsibility at some point once we have that personnel in place. Does anyone else have any further discussion with regard to TASB Policy Update 114?
I had one, and you can come to, I mean, it's just through the first reading thinking, maybe you can, the one about the concealed handguns and stuff,
Firearms.
the firearms and all that, specifically teachers, parents, kids, each one of them, how that rule changes.
Okay. Unless we have a marshal plan or guardian plan, aren't allowed to bring firearms onto the campuses. So that would have to be something
It's
that
that
would
I
have
was
to
saying the same,
That's.
because I thought that said that
The change as I read it, and we'll get more explanation, is
they're
you
hidden.
can't limit where they go. If there's certain areas you can, not in the buildings, but you have to describe what premise is. And so premise has to be defined in an appropriate way. They also took away the provisions, the way we stored weapons if you carried one in your car.
That's,
It
yeah.
used to be clipped and the
Yeah,
pistol were
stored.
different. Now they can be kept together. They just have to be kept in a secure location, which includes your car, and they can be loaded. So again, the legislature has opened that up a little bit more, but
And who and how does that rule apply? Because I know that we've had like a kid who's, you know, he hadn't brought it to school, he had it in his car, blah, blah, blah. Just clarification on all that.
I think that's a good suggestion, Leslie. Anyone else have any suggestions?
I want to go back to the one you were talking about on security personnel.
Yes.
In that second paragraph, kind of in the middle, it talks about with districts with the police force. It seems like it gives a little bit different direction. Is it beneficial in this case for us to have a district police force as opposed to how we have it now directly under the superintendent? I don't know. I don't know if that.
We've broached the subject. And I will say with our candidates, that may be a possibility with some of the candidates that we have as well. A more viable option with the candidates that we have that have applied for.
I think it's gonna be a difficult area to plow a little bit, because, I mean, the way the legislature opened it up, like the marshal program, you can have as many marshals as you want
Right.
on campus, which are entitled to carry weapons, and And so, I mean, the legislature intends for us to use all available tools to make
Right.
it as secure as we can. We just have to find a comfort level with our constituency. Anything else anyone wants to see if we have any specific discussion on? All right. Then we'll move on to item C, review, discuss, consider proposal for public address system PA for campuses.
This was brought up at the needs assessment at the last board meeting. We talked about the PA system that was installed. Brian, do you know how many years that was? Was that
So it was last year we installed the overlay system at all of the campuses apart from the junior high. So I'm not really sure, I'm not positive when the junior high was initially done. But all of the other campuses were, the overlay was put in last year.
And when that was installed, there were some areas that were left out, and this is basically just adding those additional areas which we discussed, the cafeteria, lunch areas, and then the outside areas that we don't have any PA system. So this is just really basically finishing out what we started over a year ago.
Any further discussion with regard to that item? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the Lone Star Communications proposal for the PA system at all campuses, including the athletic field houses at the high school and the junior high and all campus kitchens.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Ham,
Second.
second by Mr. Strange. Any further discussion? No. Please indicate your approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition. That motion passes unanimously. Next item is item D, discussion and consideration of personnel needs of the district.
At the last board meeting, we discussed some positions that we were losing and needed to replace, and these are replacements for those positions.
Does anyone have any questions with regard to the personnel items that we need to go into executive session about? It's not an action item, so we'll move on.
Number 3, there's nothing on number 3.
You have no additional personnel needs? Okay.
We're moving to campus reports. We can't.
Item E will be the campus reports. We have all your reports. If you'd like to come up just one at a time and update us, you don't have to redo your reports. Just give us something important and exciting.
No pressure.
You got all the pressure.
I did give you guys a printout of the latest newsletter. One of the reasons I did that is on the back few pages there is a list of calendar of events. We are in the holiday season, and we have things like A Christmas Story, and we have musicals, and we have concerts, choir, and bands, and that includes a lot of campuses. And that calendar of events that I have does include lots of different events from the multiple KISD campuses. The other thing that I can say is I believe as of tomorrow, the over $250,000 renovation of the PAC that you guys approved is going to be done ahead of schedule, and they will start cleaning out, which features new lighting systems and things like that. I will say that just kind of with everyone in the room that's here, I know that the company that's doing the renovation is also going to need to train people on the light boards and things like that. So if there's anybody other than Ms. Croft that we think we might need to train to do that, to host events, but we again, you guys did a great job. That's going to be a state-of-the-art facility with the lighting and staging that you installed there. And the company, I know they were moving one day from Kennedale to another school district, the way I understand it, and starting at another project somewhere else. But that is up and running. We've had a successful November, and it's good to go in the Thanksgiving break. We had a state runner that did well in cross country. We've got some new programs off the ground that have done well. We've entered our second different robotics competition. We had a Kennedale Education Foundation, I know, has awarded more grants to high school teachers. The high school teachers got 5. I know that's on the agenda tonight, so I don't want to go through all of those amounts, but it is amazing to see that how well the Education Foundation did in this community to support teachers. I think every teacher on our campus that applied for a grant got a grant, and we appreciate that. But we've had lots of good things going on. We're continuing our health science practicum students are continuing on at the local hospitals and getting those CNA. They had a graduation ceremony. Every person that graduated from Kennedale from that Spring Pack Institute received a job offer before they left. And so there's great things going on right now in Kennedale ISD. Of course, one of the greatest things going on right now, lots to brag on. I'll see all the board members, hopefully, or as many as you can, that can get to Garland tomorrow night. We are playing in the state semifinals volleyball, and hopefully we'll have another game on Saturday. It does look like Carthage is on the other end of that bracket, and we could have a little bit of revenge. But it is a great day to be a Wildcat, and lots of good things going on at the high school.
Thank you. Is anyone here from the junior high?
No, they did not make it tonight.
Then we'll move down to Arthur.
All right. We also have lots of exciting things to talk about. We've been going on several field trips. Our fifth grade students went to the Log Cabin Village in Fort Worth a couple of weeks ago, and that was really a neat experience. I'd never been there before. I didn't even know it was there. But the kids did a great job, and it was really neat to watch them make connections of what they were seeing and experiencing versus what they'd learned in class, and hearing them talk about the connections. It was lots of fun. We have lots of extracurricular activities going on right now. We have our UTA Future Cities group that meets 2 days after school each week. We have Whiz Quiz that's meeting after school twice a week. Science Club, we have a choir that meets at the end of the day once a week. And then practice for our musical has already started, and that will be The Little Mermaid this year. That will be in February. Every Friday we have our Genius Hour, which is my most favorite thing in the whole wide world. It is just so fun to walk around the school and see kids knitting, doing meditation. Mr. G joined in on the meditation one day.
Meditation was the best thing ever.
And so my PE teacher suggested that maybe we take the athletics group and the cheerleading group to a pep rally at the high school so they can see where their passions or the things they're interested in, where it could take them in Kennedale ISD. So we took a field trip to the high school and went to the pep rally. That was lots of fun. We had an incredible Veterans Day celebration, lots of compliments on that. And tonight is our math and science night. So when I left the building, we had lots of community and family members doing science and experiments and participating in math games. It's fun to watch. A couple more things. The teachers are making 5 positive phone calls home twice a month. And so we are getting a good response from that. And as they're doing that, Mrs. Poore and I make positive phone calls home to the staff members' families. And that's been a lot of fun. They at first they're like, "What? Who is this? What is it?" But it's been a lot of fun. And then of course last week we had teachers, students, and community members go to Camp Grady Spruce for 3 days, and they had a great time, loved it. They've updated their curriculum to really match what we're doing in the classroom, and so it's another good experience for the kids to make connections. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Delaney?
Good evening. So lots of great things at Delaney too. I know you have a list of things that I provided for you, but I would like to highlight a couple of things with numbers to it. I know Patterson also participated in Delaney in the Blazing Trails Literacy Program in partnership with Kennedale Fire Department and the Arlington Fire Department that went to Patterson. But we had a total of students read 21,416 minutes. So very excited. It was it was just a really fun experience. I got to ride the two winners of each grade level, 1st through 4th, got to ride the fire truck to the school. The students are very excited, and just the participation and involvement and all the reading that the students did to participate in this program. So we are very appreciative of that new partnership. And I know Mr. Altum has had his hand in coordinating that and followed up with us and want to continue that for next year. So we're excited about that. The winners alone read 7,693 minutes. We are currently, as I mentioned on there, doing the annual food drive for the Linda Huckabee Food Drive. We have way surpassed our goal and what we achieved last year, which we were excited about that. We've already collected over 4,000 cans. So super excited about that. And I just, appreciate the students, but also the parents just having that desire to want to help our community and instilling that in their students. It's just been very humbling and exciting to see the great character that our students are growing up and the parents and the school together are trying to help foster. And we just have a great group of kids, and I'm very proud of them. And we're looking forward to, we've got our second house huddle coming up tomorrow and open lunch. So we'll be inviting parents in at lunch and honoring our kids for having the character trait of the month, which is respect this month. And then when we get back from our fall break on Tuesday, our students will be participating Delaney Choir in the tree lighting at Kennedale. So we're looking forward to that as well. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Patterson.
I'm reading the notes, man.
Good evening, everyone. So, to update you, last week it was voted, or last month voted that we would hire a 4th grade teacher. So we were able to do that, offered her the position. She came in this week to sign her contract. Her first day will be December 2nd. We're going to have a meet and greet for the 4th grade parents to come up and meet her. We're also going to transition her into that role. So that first week, she'll shadow the other 4th grade teachers. So the kids will get used to seeing her. She'll get to see what we do instructionally in the classroom. She'll be able to spend some time with her students so they can get to know her a little better, and then give her some time to work in her room. So we thought it would be a smooth transition for everybody in that situation. She will officially have her own class starting that following Monday, which I believe is the 9th. Her name is Miss Valentine. She's coming to us from the private sector. She has taught 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th, 7th, and I think some 8th grade. So she has that experience there, and so we're excited to bring her on board and bring some relief to some of those classrooms and those teachers. Grants, we received a grant, our 3rd grade teachers, for over $2,600. And our campus received a little bit over $2,000 for a small group resource instructional strategy grant, where they're going to build kits for small groups to make sure that we have materials accessible for the teachers to pull and use instructionally in the classroom. Rush Creek Church is collecting meals, or creating meals that they're going to deliver to some of our families in the community. Like Ms. Pride mentioned, Kennedale, Arlington Fire Department escorted our students to school, and it was really exciting. They wouldn't let me ride the fire truck, so I was a little bummed about that. But, really, I didn't make it there to ride the fire truck. It wasn't that they wouldn't let me. But I was really excited. I asked them if I could hang off the back, but they said no, I'd have to go on the inside. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but okay. The McMillan family donated a projector and surround sound system to the campus, brand new in the box. So we're going to utilize that in our conference room, so that way we're able to have presentations and things in there and utilize that system that way. The Kennedale fighters, they're going to also sponsor our angel tree like they do annually. And so we have lots of families that are in need. And so they're going to be able to provide that support to them. Our vets parade, I shared with the principals earlier that it was very successful, and a lot of the vets and their families were moved to tears because they said that when they returned from Vietnam, they never had a welcoming celebration or anyone to welcome them home. And so it was it touched them, and it was moved. They were very moved by us being able to do that for them. Some of our events coming up, Mr. and Mrs. Patterson will be doing their annual campus visit. They love to come every Christmas and pass out pencils to each and every student. So they visit every classroom, and they really get a kick out of it. The kids are always excited because the school is named after him, and so the fact that they get to meet him and his wife and see them, they really enjoy that. Join us on December 19th for hot chocolate and pajamas. You're welcome to wear your pajamas and come join us for Polar Express Day. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have a proposal with regard to the Kennedale High School cheerleading UCA National Invitation.
Miss Jenkins can't be here tonight, but I believe we have, sorry, gonna propose it.
Hi, I'm Katarina Lilly. I am the JV cheer coach and 8th grade social studies teacher at Kennedale Junior High. Tonight I'm stepping in for Coach Jenkins. She is traveling to Disney with 2 of our varsity cheerleaders who are All-Americans for their performance in the Walt Disney World Christmas Spectacular. I stand before you today hoping to give a similar yet much larger opportunity to the entire Kennedale cheer program. On November 3rd, 2019, our varsity competition team competed at Universal Cheerleaders Association, UCA, North Texas Regional Competition in Louisville. This was our first time competing in this competition, and we were extremely proud to walk away with a 3rd place trophy and a bid to UCA Nationals in Orlando, Florida. Additionally, we scored only a half point less than the team who ranked 3rd place at the UIL State Spirit competition last year. This proves that we are within the top rank of not only teams within our area, but are ready to take on teams across the state of Texas. We will be working hard to make our routine the best it can be for the year's UIL competition in February. But we'd like to go a step further. We would like to compete at nationals level in Orlando. This trip would allow our athletes to compete on a much larger scale, afford them opportunities that they may not otherwise have, or as well as display Kennedale Junior High and Kennedale ISDs on a national scale. I am confident that we can work to perfect our routine and stand out among the competition. Currently, our program offers unwavering support to our teams, schools, and community. This year alone, we have supported our by cheering at games, coordinating and hosting pep rallies, and supporting fundraisers and events hosted by other organizations. Additionally, we have hosted paint parties to boost student morale and campus climate, participated with the Education Foundation in their Pride Patrol, and served as KISD's ambassadors at local business grand openings. We are now seeking support from KISD School Board Superintendent, KHS Principal, and Kennedale community as we embark on our competition season. After speaking with Mr. Cagle, we understand that the biggest concern surrounding this competition is cost. I want to assure you that our athletes are 100% committed to fundraising the money for this trip. In fact, we have raised over $6,500 throughout this year, and $2,300 were raised in just the past 6 days. Additionally, both parents and students have signed contracts on file. In these contracts, parents and athletes commit to fundraising and acknowledging that any portion of the money not raised through fundraisers will be paid by the parents. While we certainly are accepting any financial acceptance or assistance available from the school and or district, we are understanding that this may not be possible and are fully prepared to cover the cost. Furthermore, parents have the option to opt out of funding and paying the full cost of this athlete's trip, making the total amount needing to be raised slightly lower. Other concerns surrounding this trip include safety and grades. We will certainly be compliant of the 1-to-10 ratio by ensuring that our coaching staff attends. We have 2 coaches for KHS, Coach Jenkins and myself, and who will be attending. Additionally, our junior high coaches are willing to attend along with a host of parents who are volunteering pending a background check. Lastly, we realize that students will miss 3.5 days of school. To combat this, teachers will be made aware of this trip at least 2 weeks in advance, and work will be requested for all participating athletes. Pending approval from you, the board, we hope to continue our fundraising efforts over the next few months through our Booster Club. Planning fundraisers, including GoFundMe's, participating in the KHS Band Craft Fair, Wildcat Skate Night at Arlington Stadium, Christmas snack sales, and so much more. We would like to thank you for your time and consideration, and most importantly, your support. You each have a packet of information that was provided answers to the most intricate details of this trip. It is our hope that you find them to your liking and will send us to Disney. Who knows, maybe you will even want to donate. Thank you. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions? It's not an action item for us. I think it's just a presentation.
Perfect. I was told to ask. Thank you.
Any objections to it?
Does anyone have any concerns with them attending it?
No.
And I think we need to help them. I think we need to help them.
We don't help on anything beyond that, beyond state.
Oh, yeah.
This is beyond
It's a
state.
part, so we.
Do it personal.
Individually, we can do
Okay.
it.
And-
Yeah, I mean, our policy's been, or pretty much up to state level, state competitions. Beyond that, we don't fund them.
Do they have a similar state level, I guess, question, is there a state level competition for the cheerleaders that they've already attended?
If it's okay, I want to like to answer that. Cheerleading, the cheer competition, the spirit competition is UIL sponsored and sanctioned at the state level, which they will be competing in. It will be hosted at the Fort Worth Convention Center.
Okay.
One of the things with cheerleading, there are lots of outside organizations who also host competitions, and I would compare this to archery competitions, to Business Professionals of America national competitions. There are lots of national competitions. Even within cheerleading, there are multiple national competitions. UCA hosts one, NCA hosts one, different hosting organizations. So in the state of Texas, when Mr. G is talking about us hosting them up to the state level, it gets a little bit, it can get very confusing when you start saying going to the national level of national competitions. It becomes, just a cheerleading alone, I know of 2 that we could attend. So they have chosen one sponsoring organization, but we have typically not spent school funds on out-of-state travel or to national competitions.
Yeah, we've had others, I think, go to national competitions and we haven't.
We've had archery, PPA, and theater, just in my time at the high school.
There are band, national competitions for band. I mean,
Band,
so we don't fund those.
And
Choir.
I've known several cheerleaders that have gotten full college rides for cheerleading, so yeah, I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, as long as they're running.
Trade fair,
They're gonna do their own
trying to
fundraising.
restrain my wife from
There's no
buying
objections to
too
them
much.
traveling out of state? No? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item up is, are we doing the education final?
The grants, Ms. Clark, do you want to speak about the grants, or do you want me to, or Sean, Mr. Ham, you want to talk, you know the amount, the final amount that was given?
Yeah, the final amount, unless do you want to come down and, no? Okay. The final amount was $26,333 given to the schools. I forget how many numbers there are on here, but you can count them, quite a few grants.
There were lots of grants. We had a great day. I'll pick up from there, but I'll kind of tie this into my report. This last Friday, some of you were able to join us. We had a really good time going around, and a lot of excitement from our teachers, a lot of tears from our teachers. some very emotional grants that were awarded. Very I say humbling, but you know, when you sit there and you watch and just the excitement that they bring to it, and the excitement that was brought into the moment was great. And I applaud our Education Foundation for being able to bring that kind of excitement to our teachers and our staff and our cheerleaders. Our band went around. We on a bus and went from campus to campus and around the hallways. Disturbed a few classrooms, but that's okay. But it was a really good day. We even had an impromptu pep rally at the Central Administration Office. It was a volleyball playoff game, so we kind of had a little bit of everything going on that day, and a playoff football game that day. So we had a lot of excitement, and that amount of money, $26,000, makes a big difference in our district. So we just had another Education Foundation meeting last night, and they got more plans to do more fundraising this spring. So to bring more grants about. So we're excited. So, anything y'all want to add on to that?
It was incredible. It really does make a big difference, and we really appreciate it.
And I was lucky enough to get to travel around. I mean, most of the grants were for things that they last a long time. Things that every student can use, not only this year, but 5 years in the future, assuming they have that longevity. It was really, looking at the type of grants that were awarded, I think that was wonderful. They focused on a lot of items that help a lot of kids, and they're practical and things that I think they can benefit from. And I would encourage everyone here and anyone who views the video, please donate to the Educational Foundation. I mean, they do a lot of great work for our kids.
And we need to encourage more of our teachers to also apply for the grants. Yeah. That's a big factor also.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about at the meeting last night, is they're going to do a grant writing kind of a class or how to help some of the teachers if they want help with that. So I think that'll be good.
And just a logistical question, because I see books and movies, was there any vetting as far as the curriculum, making sure these things are age appropriate and aligned? And
yes, they spoke with Dr. Boo, myself, and Mr. Adams before we
approved
everything, to make sure that we're also working on our alignment and making sure that what we're getting comes into alignment with what we're looking for. Any other questions on Education Foundation? So Mr. Cagle stole some of my thunder when he announced the pack is finished up. That was one thing. So I was going to say that we're ready to roll. We will be in the pack on Friday. I hope that all of you can make it on Friday to our presentation that we have on Friday at 1 o'clock. So that is a big annual tradition. So hopefully you can all be there. But the pack should be finished up for them. We have performances that are already being booked up and coming through. So there were, as he said, Christmas time, we have lots of performances that will be in there. So hopefully you can make it to that. I'm going to remind you of your calendar that was created for you to make sure that you're able to sign up for events and check off what you want to be at. So please get on your calendar and look at what Tracy has on there for you so that you know what's coming up. Okay. Additionally, Dr. Vu and I will be in Mansfield tomorrow for our second round of the One Thing conversations that they do, those presentations, so we can see how they take it to the next step with those. So we'll be in Mansfield tomorrow for those. I want to applaud our campuses. I believe 4 out of our 5 campuses had Veterans Day celebrations of some sort. I would like to continue to expand upon that. I believe that is something that we need to make sure that we do every year. And I would like to see all of our campuses doing something, if not having something maybe a little bit more combined with our campuses to where maybe we join together on some things. But that's something that's very, very dear to me, and I think that's something that we need to continue to do for our veterans. And as Ms. Jones pointed out, several of our Vietnam veterans felt like that's one of the few times that they've actually felt welcome. So that's a big, huge thing. So I think we need to keep doing that. Other than that, we are rocking and rolling and moving. And we're going to talk about some other things here in a minute as far as later in the board meeting about strategic planning and meeting. But those are the things that we're moving forward with. So, and Brian's already working on. They're analyzing systems in our we have our CTE group helping out with Brian's department for manpower, going through and I can't explain what they're doing, Brian, but basically they are.
We're documenting our network,
Yeah.
the inside of it and outside, getting ready to potentially anyway refreshing equipment. And, there's the physical side of it that you see. There's also the logical side of it that's a lot more complicated than what you actually see on the outside. That's on the inside, and we're going through that down to the very detail and looking at securing it and making it reliable and optimizing it for what we need.
Mr. Creasy and his kids
They're
are
helping us go through the campuses and labeling ports, so we know all of those cables that you saw. We'll know exactly which classrooms are connected to which, and when we go moving things around, we'll know who we're unplugging and who's staying connected. And,
nice to know.
And that's all good to know. So they're helping a lot with that. I think they're excited about it.
So we have a lot of activities coming up at Christmas time, so if you can, I know we can't all be at everything, but if you can divide and conquer on some of those things, the calendar should help you with those events. That'd be good. And I said our kids always do good performance, great performances.
And basketball season has started.
Uh-oh.
Basketball has started. Volleyball is wrapping up. Football had a tough game first round. And then, so powerlifting should be kicking up, and I know our what night is the Meet the Wildcats for the? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
December 4th.
December 4th, Meet the Wildcats in the gym. Right, so that would be for our fall sports. So I know that's coming up.
Anything else?
I think that's we got. There's a lot more, but I mean I could talk all night. So we can
Next item was discussion of a regular meeting date for Thursday, December 19th. Is there any conflict in that date? What are y'all doing on that date that you know of?
Do we have anything on the calendar?
Then the second part of that is discussion about work sessions prior to the regular monthly meeting.
This is something that was brought up at the last meeting, trying to work through some of our strategic planning and getting at our goal setting and mission statement, team of 8 training that will be coming up. Is it better to have a work session prior to the meeting? A lot of districts do that. I think a lot of city governments also do that. Or would we prefer to have like a work session like in the week prior to our regular board meeting and have things that we can work through there? I think that would help some of our members who time constraints would help them, where we could split the meetings up as opposed to having very long meetings. So,
Are these work sessions separate than what we would talk about at the meeting?
yes.
Okay, so these would be specific to something.
Instead of calling them special, we could call them special meetings,
Okay.
work meetings, but they would be in addition to, so that we can.
Are these gonna be discussions over things that we're gonna vote on, or when you say
We're just
strategic?
prioritizing things that we want to move forward with. You know, like I said, our re-looking at when we started in the summer, looking at our goals and vision, mission and all that, and coming into that. We still have to do team of 8 training, so that would be another session possibly. So these are just special sessions basically that you can call them work sessions or you can call them special meetings.
If we did them prior to the meeting, I mean, what are we talking about, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Usually like the work session would be an hour and then the meeting, however long the regular meeting takes.
So only an hour for the work session?
I'd say an hour, yes.
If we spread them out, if you did, and I'm not suggesting we do it, if you had your regular meeting on a Thursday and had your work sessions, say, for example, in between our regular sessions, just as a normal thing, you know, you're looking at the opportunity to discuss an issue, you know, perhaps can come back at the next meeting and have further discussion about it if it's helpful. So, I mean, it gives us another look at things twice a month, although it's more commitment, staff and us. That's the thing I'm concerned with, dragging them out another night for them or additional time for them.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, if it was only an hour, I don't know if we need a whole separate day for just an hour. But it seems like we might have better discussion if we could have a couple hours together. If that's the case, then I don't wanna do it right before a board meeting. Now we're here at 4 or 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we do it right before the board meeting, we do it for an hour. Now we're all rushing to try to get everything done in an hour. Is it useful?
Yeah, that's my question as well. Based off Michael's, how productive is this gonna be? We've had 4 and 5 hour meetings that aren't on voting items. We pay you a lot of money to do these, and I think if it's something you can put together yourself,
We can definitely bring.
and present to
We can
us.
definitely come up with a plan, but the thing is, it's not the team of 8.
I know, but it's been done
concept of-
before. That's kind of the struggle, is that
Yeah.
I don't think we're not inventing the wheel here.
Sure.
Would these be open session and recorded?
They would have to be, yes. Oh, I mean, it depends on what the topic is, and you could, if it's construction and stuff like that, where you're talking with lawyers and architects, then it could be closed session, so. it
That to me just doesn't seem like our realm. I mean, that's your expertise. I mean, we hired you to do some of that, to have the strategic plan. I think it's easier for us if you present it to us and we can kind of go from there and look at things and kind of put in input, but to brainstorm with you from the ground up isn't really the board's.
I don't think it's necessarily from the ground up. I think it's more steering, there would be things that we've brought to you and steering, not necessarily from the ground up, so, yeah.
Well, we certainly have to have training. We have to have training on recognizing human trafficking now. We have to have training on technology. We have to have our team of 8 training. I mean, so there are at least 5 hours of time that we've got to put in just on those 3 topics, minimum.
And that's productive. That's things that we need to have
you
done. Is that on top of this as well?
I think you could use these for both of those. I mean, I think you could, certain topics will qualify for team of 8 as long as we're all there. Some won't, but some will. But I mean, talking about security issues, I think we need to have discussions about it, because I do read that that's our role now. They're going to have to be careful with it, because you can't have public discussions about what security protocols you're putting in place, because that kind of defeats the purpose. I just think, again, I don't want to drag people and make them have another night, but I do think that the legislature is putting more and more on boards to do more of this. And we've got to figure out a way to do it, because it's either come in at 4 o'clock and work through, which is okay, or pick a day where you can do 3 hours at like a regular meeting time, 7 o'clock, limit the number of people that need to come that have to present, and we can accomplish a lot. I think you see more and more entities moving to staggering meetings, work session and then a regular session, just because they can do things in a different way. We just have to figure out what works for us.
And I think productivity is a big one.
Yeah.
But we've had multiple team of 8 meetings, and some of them weren't done correctly. So making sure that when we do those, we're getting enough credit, we're being efficient with it, we're not just sitting there beating around ideas and not having a lot to show with it.
Well, the legislature, again, has changed that, requires that certain of these programs have to be presented by a qualified presenter. I mean, so there are some things that, no matter what we do, we're gonna have to hire someone to come in and give us the training, because the legislature says we have to have it. I just, do we wanna do that? I mean, that might be, a long day to do that in a regular meeting. That would be my only concern.
For me, the more information, the better. I agree that that long session, I'm leaving home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went home for 15 minutes and came right here. So if we're doing a session where we're doing another couple of hours on top of this, it wears me out. If we can do it in between, that gives you a chance to not only discuss the items a little bit, but go home and think about them. And, maybe ask a couple of questions to people that are not at the board meeting that it may affect. Ask my wife, as a school teacher, or talk to a principal or something like that. How is this going to affect them, and how it's going to affect the kids? For me, I don't like to have another meeting, but I think it'd be useful to have another meeting. To have that kind of, let's get the information from an expert, digest it, and then we can have a chance to vote with a little bit better knowledge versus rushing into it. That's my opinion.
So is there consensus? Obviously, it's okay to have some work sessions. Nobody's really opposing having work sessions.
I mean, I need to see some proof and that it's productive, but I'll give it a shot. I
Okay.
mean,
What, do you want to try the first one, try it right before the next meeting, do that and see how that works, rather than having special time? Would that be a good first step?
Yeah.
Okay.
So having it the week before?
Same day, I mean, just like,
Same day.
the first day, come in like at 6. So do we want to schedule to try a 6 o'clock next regular meeting?
I think much earlier, it's hard for community members to get here as well, so 6 sounds good.
Okay. So we're gonna see, we just.
Do we
try
know
the
what that
one?
first one would be about, December?
We'll have to post and give us information on it. But we have time to post, I think, don't we? Yeah.
So do that at 6 o'clock.
6 on the 19th.
Assuming we have something to work on, how about that? Assuming there's something important to spend our time on. We'll try the first one and see how it goes and work from there, though, okay?
I know John was also asking for the work sessions.
So we're gonna do a 1-hour work session, or plan for it on the Thursday, the 19th, starting at 6. And then we'll look at what we do from there. And the next item under board discussion is item B, which is student empathy shadowing. Mr. Strange.
Right. In that line with board goals and visions, I want to introduce something to you. This was introduced, I gave this to the principals last week, I think, and then earlier this week to kind of look over and get their feedback, so I'll show that at the end. Let's see here. There we go, thank you. And so I know that this screen's not here, so on your iPad you can put in that bit.ly there. It's case sensitive, so that's a lowercase bit.ly, and then / and then it's capital KISD student. So that way you can access this as well. And then some of the things that are linked in there, these are the hard copies. So I'll come to these here in a moment. Oh, let me grab mine. So this is called Shadow a Student Challenge. So I'll just take about 10 minutes here to kind of walk you through the why and the how and the what of what all this looks like, and then kind of gauge interest on how we want to do this, if at all. And the why for us, so we know at TEA asked us to build a vision, work with our superintendent as a team of 8 to build a vision. It gives specific wording in there about the needs of our students, not only right now, but in the future, of course. And so kind of the purpose behind this, I put on there in preparation for updating the KISD board vision and goals to find a creative way to build empathy for the student and teacher experience. This is called the Shadow a Student Challenge, and we'll give you some details on this in a second. The who here would be superintendent's office, board members, administrators, so principals, APs. This is kind of a national thing that's been done before. This is from Stanford University, called the D School. It's an initiative that it's called School Retool, and it's the shadowastudent.org is the website. And as you can see there, there's over 5,000 signups just in the last few years, 60 different countries, tons of different schools here in the U.S. have done this in the last few years. And then we're going to talk about kind of the how, which is how do we sign up for this? The toolkit, which is this packet here. We'll kind of work through this. Once you do sign up, they kind of give you this very strict protocol that you can work through. So almost every question you could think of from prep all the way to action, what would this look like? It's been worked through before by someone else through Stanford University. And ultimately, what we want to get out of this is to build empathy and gain insight to inform our vision and goals. I think in a general purpose, in the role I'm at in education, I have a pretty good feel for the student experience every day and teachers. But I think sometimes, especially for board members that aren't in education like this, could just, how the actual day goes throughout a kid's life is kind of hard to understand unless you're in those shoes. So this is a way for us to be in their shoes for a day, if you will. And for those that don't know, that's a movie called Billy Madison. So you'll have to look that up. It's my youth there, so I appreciate that. Real quick, so the toolkit. So this is the packet here, and then once you sign up, they give you this. But of course, I've done this already, so I already had it. But essentially, it walks you through the prep. So before the shadow student, what steps do you take? What steps do the campus takes? Communication. There's email templates. It kind of every little thing you can think of. How would you communicate this to parents, to students? Who would you shadow? How, the process of that. And then it walks you through the actual shadowing process that day. Reflections kind of gives you guiding questions on what to pull out from the end of the day, and then ways to act on that. This, I will be upfront and say this was originally intended more for like campus principals, superintendents, educators of those campuses. But I guess about 3 or 4 months ago, I reached out to them, and they said there has been some individual board members that have kind of done it throughout, but they've never really had like a collective. I think this would be something great for us to do. So that's that part there, which is an overview. Specifically in the toolkit, I just want to highlight a couple things in there, and then we'll open the floor for questions and stuff. One is, so the first one is prep. And the 3 big things in the prep, one is creating learning goals. So if you'll go to page 3, it says, what do you hope to learn? So it gives you an example of what learning goals would be like. So for example, maybe your learning goal is, I would like to know more about, the technology, how it's implemented at the high school level. So maybe that's a learning goal. Or I'd like to know more of the experience of a SPED student or an EL student, what their day looks like as they go from class to class. So that's kind of the idea of a learning goal. Is there kind of something you're looking for? And to be honest, the time I did, I just wanted to see what it was like. I didn't really have a specific learning goal. I don't think that's a must necessarily. The second one is the shadowing process, so the actual day of the shadowing. So if you'll turn to page 11. Looks like that there. It's got the kind of like a workbook that you can fold and go through and write observations as you go throughout the day. It also gives a section for reflections, kind of ideas of what you might reflect on throughout the day, questions you could ask the student as you're going throughout from class period to class period, things to look for. The reflection part, so after you have shadowed the student at the end of the day and you're taking the backpack off and you're exhausted, page 16 gives you kind of a protocol to follow on what those observations might look like. Things that we noticed, things that we felt, and then kind of giving you a reflective chance to interpret what that might be. What was happening when I felt that way? What was going on when I had those things that I noticed. And then opportunities, things that make you wonder. So what is it that made me feel that way? I did this last year at Arthur with Emmy, and I noticed she was always saying she couldn't put things in her locker. She was like, oh, I forgot it in my locker. And I was like, how do you always forget? And then I noticed whatever that class period was before lunch, she had art class, which was in the temporary, and then she had lunch, and then that other class was on the other side of the building. She never really had a route to get to her locker, so that was good for me to know. So now I could talk to her, hey, go to your locker before you go to art class. So then you go to art. If I wasn't in that situation, I would have never even put the 2 and 2 together for her. So those situations where just feeling what the student feels, I think is helpful for us. And then ultimately, the ACT part, which of course looks different for us as a board. So I kind of pulled this here under the acting part. As we finish and we reflect, what were the insights that we gained? What inspiration did we get? So when we do start to collaborate on our vision and our board goals, we kind of now have that insight in the back of our mind of when we start making these policies and stuff, as you mentioned earlier, like who does this affect? We have some feeling as who does that affect? So that's a general overview on that. So let's talk specifically about for us. I gave this task card here. Of course, the hyperlinks don't help you on paper, so they got a digital copy of it. if you'd like that, I can send it to you. But and I just asked the principals to. There's 2 specific videos. One on a superintendent in Fredericksburg, another one on an AP in Los Angeles. To watch that video, and they kind of gave them the overview of what it was like for them when they did the shadow a student on there. And then I asked them for feedback. I asked the principals, like, give me some feedback. What things did you like and you wish and you wondered? Here's the kind of raw data for the feedback, if you want to look at that there from the principals. I gave a summary here just to kind of give it to you. Things that our principals liked. They liked that board members would be on campus. They like the idea of vertical collaboration. You know, many times as a board, we collaborate with each other, or as principals, they collaborate with each other. Very rarely do we get to actually collaborate vertically, get down to the student level, which is ultimately what this is all about, right? Helping out the students. So they like that vertical collaboration. And then principals said they liked us to be able to view school through the students' eyes. From first period to second period, go to gym, you go to gym. If they're taking a test in third period, you're taking that test third period, which is, I did pretty good, by the way, on that test thank you. I did good. I can pass 5th grade English, apparently. So whatever they do, what this is not, you are not evaluating anybody. You're not evaluating the teacher. You are literally just like a new student walking into class, and that's your buddy that's taking you from class to class. Whatever they do, you do. And again, in those videos, the AP was running in gym class. I think the superintendent had to do basketball practice after school, like whatever that student does. So pick carefully, by the way. And then wonderings from our principals. How will students be chosen? What would the communication look like throughout this process to stakeholders? And then some principals asked, could other people do it as well? Could parents do this or teachers? Again, this is just a national initiative through Stanford. It's not really open to anyone specific. It's just kind of there for anybody to try out. And then suggestions from our principals. One was to avoid conflicts of interest, which I think is good. So for instance, like my wife is at the high school, so I wouldn't go to high school. My son's at Patterson, I wouldn't go to Patterson, right? So if my just to give you an example, if my learning goal was implementing technology, then, Arthur or the junior high would probably be my best two, because they're going to have Chromebooks there, and there's no conflicts for me at those schools. And then another suggestion was giving the observer a look-for sheet, like giving kind of a full scope of the campus before they walk in to schedule around their interests. I am going to push back on that one. I think to hold true to just getting the student's view, unless you're giving that student that every day, like we don't want any other information. We just want to walk in as a student. However, I will say in the debrief, so that night or the next day, whenever we do the debrief, to give some perspective, I think that would be fine to give a full perspective. But on the day of the shadow a student, like you're just a student. We don't need any, unless you give every student a schedule to meet the principal for 30 minutes every day, then go for it. But otherwise, whatever they're doing, you're doing on there. So that was really helpful. So thank you, principals, for giving me that feedback. That was really helpful to kind of confirm a few things and change a few things on my end. So if this is something that we're interested in, next steps then, one, we would work with Mr. G to kind of sign us up, what that date might look like. Once you do sign up, they do send you this packet here with all the good stuff. They give you tons of email templates, communication templates, to kind of walk you through that process when you get ready to do it logistically. And then work out logistics with Mr. G in his office there as far as what date we would want to pick. I would suggest, end of January, middle of February, somewhere before that we're actually getting into spring break and all that stuff. And then the selection process, again, like we talked about, to me, the best option is to communicate this to our stakeholders and allow them to opt in. So if a parent's like, hey, I would love for you to walk with Johnny, let them come to us, and then if we get a handful of kids in every single campus, then that's the pool we would pick from, as opposed to us handpicking kids, just letting them pull from us. And then again, communication, working out how that looks, and celebrations. One thing I thought about as I was building this was, at our last board meeting, we had the culinary arts do the dinner and stuff. This would be awesome to do a shadow student for a day, and then at the end of the day, invite the parent, invite the principal, sit down with the student, whatever funny photos we took, like just have a moment of celebration and then get some insight from the kids as well, like how their day was and if that was a typical day, or, you know, then from the board members, kind of how we felt, or administrators, whoever else does it, to kind of recap the day. And then ultimately the day of the shadow. So we would just go learn and have fun, kind of going back to school again. I find myself in classrooms every day. I had to go observe 6 classrooms today, but I would imagine some of you probably haven't been in a classroom in like a decade or so, or maybe more. So, you know, what that's like could be fun. I don't know. It could be scary. I'm not sure. But anyways, this is something I think for us as a board, so many times there can be unintended consequences when you don't really have the full breadth of what those decisions are being made. And in this end, we work in the student business. So understanding what the student's day is like, I think is super important if we're going to talk about the global view of the district. So it's a lot of information. Questions?
It's not an action item, so I mean, it's more
Yeah.
a presentation. I think with what you've given us, I think, I did watch the video and look at the program, so I mean, I think all of us hopefully have a chance to see that and see what it's like. You know, I think we have to have some more discussion about it.
Sure.
I mean, I do worry that this is one of those occasions where it looks like you're too far into it. As a board, we're up here, and I can understand that. Looking at the video, I was wondering as I was watching it, you know, how much of that classroom was different that day? Was that a real true picture of what a child has? And I absolutely agree with the idea that in terms of vertical alignment, if our elementary principals had a chance to shadow, if that was an idea at junior high, they might see what they're doing at their level, how it's transported up.
Right.
You know, that I see really being perhaps effective. I am concerned that at this level, just looking at it, are we beyond what we should do as a board? Are we too focused on a very narrow area? Would it be more disruptive than beneficial? Those are questions I think we need to explore and answer.
Sure.
And my initial thing would be the minute another adult who is not usually walks into a classroom, the dynamics change.
Even
And
with the kids.
I mean, as a teacher, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's a parent, if it's a whoever, the dynamics completely change, especially someone they don't know. So that would be, I mean, just kind of my initial, along with that over thing. But I mean, that's just the way it is. When you're teaching and you're doing your stuff, it's normal, whatever. But the minute someone else comes in, or the minute someone comes to observe, I mean, it's some act out because they want the attention. Others, I mean, it's just everybody feeds differently, but it makes a huge difference.
My only pushback or clarification would be, as John mentioned earlier, that the state does give us some very specific direction on how we're supposed to do our vision and goals now, and specific metrics that we have to start tying to that. And I'm cautious to do that without really having a full scope of what that student's day is going to be like. And so when we start setting down these metrics down on these teachers, which then go down to the students, and to give you one example that we see is testing. And this idea that I calculated for one of my campuses in Dallas that they spend 3/4 of their testing day, so say Fridays or whatever, 3/4 of their entire week when they're doing that testing stuff is just reviewing for a test or studying for a test or testing. So really 1/4 of their time throughout those times of the week, they're actually learning new material. But they're always getting ready for that test because it's been pushed down to them, the metrics of the test, the common assessment or the weekly DOL, or, you know. And so those making decisions aren't really thinking of that like this, but eventually as it trickles down, and unless you're actually in that world and you go through it, you don't really realize the implications that go through students. So anyways, just a thought for you on that.
Quick question, any pushback from parents saying that, you know, wanting other adults in that class?
Well, like I said, I think for us, maybe the idea is making an opt-in thing.
Okay.
And then communicating to again, when you get that email, like it has all those templates for you, communicating with the classroom teachers that you'd go to, the principal communicating to the campus parents, like this is what we're doing. This is not evaluative. They're just being a student for a day. The focus, I think that the big difference is what's the focus when you're shadowing, and the focus is just on the student you're with. It has nothing to do with what the teacher's doing or anything else. My focus is just how does Johnny or Susie feel as they go from first period to second period to third period to lunch for 30 minutes to recess to the end of the day. And so you get on that bus at 7 a.m. and then you get back off the bus at 4 o'clock. Like, how'd you feel? And that's one day out of 187 days that they have to go through.
I understand that. For me, part of my personality is to get to know the kids. You know, I'll sit at a basketball game and, or you know, talk to some of my kids' friends and stuff like that. Find out what's going on to get an insight of what's going on with the school, and actually get a person where now I can talk to about if something is going on at school, and having that person to be able to walk up, know by name, you know, because you've spent some time with them would be, I think, helpful. But I don't know how much benefit it's going to be for us versus how much benefit it would be for the kids. But it is something I'd like to discuss. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes.
I had a question.
Yes.
When you say opt in, is the whole classroom opting in or just that one parent? Because you're going to be around multiple students.
Right. So the students that want to be shadowed would be opting in, but then the communication would then go to the class to say, you know, Miss Webb's going to be with Johnny next month. Here's what this is. Yep.
And what discussion has gone on with the principals? Because when you talked about how you feel like this is necessary for our steps, I feel like they're the missing piece in that conversation because we count on them to be our eyes and our ears and tell us what's going on in the classroom. So how does this pertain to them? Have you had conversations with them? Because if I was a principal, this would make me cringe because you want to protect your faculty. Yeah. And it's a liability when anybody comes on your campus and starts to stir things.
Well, we gave them that on there, and there's were the things that they put on there. I mean, I'm more than welcome to open the floor to see if there's anything else they'd like to add. For sure.
I think we have a lot for our board to see, and also experience also gives us a way to honestly look. You guys are making decisions right now just based on the state of facilities. Group the renovation of the packets and things like that. And you're purchasing programs and things all the time, and hearing these things, to see it may open your eyes. I think if I was listening to what Mr. Strange just said, he talked about just going through experience. We got to spend 4 hours at Castleberry High School the other day, and we were in a classroom with some new flex seating and these desks that you can turn and do all of this different directional stuff. And I was just thinking, how cool was that? Most of our seating was about 20 years ago. So I got to thinking, I don't know if I can sit in a chair. But you start thinking about an experience that you're right, from the kid's perspective. Sometimes maybe seeing the teacher perspective. If you're sitting in a classroom and they're struggling with getting the projector going and things like that, it may be something we're used to on a routine basis. But you know, I think about state of our buildings. We see them every day. You don't know. You know, to me, I'm used to being in this room. What is it? What does the outsider think? And sometimes that can give you a different perspective. And I don't know. It could be kind of exciting. I think you'd enjoy being in a lot of our classrooms. Is it scary? Because as a principal, I might hear something negative, maybe. But all in all, I think you're going to have a pretty positive experience.
Well, I do think we have to work through that hierarchical issue. I mean, as a board, I mean, I have grave concerns that as a board member, I should be directing you to do anything whatsoever. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate for the board. It's a board. It's not an individual.
And that's not what this is about.
I understand.
I think it could turn into that very easily.
Especially just like what he just said of, oh, the projector doesn't work. So then I go, did you know that the projector doesn't work? And
what?
You know, and then we're doing other people's
I
jobs.
would just say don't do that.
Not focusing on the student, because it's natural for the teacher to go, yeah, this is really difficult, and these are my list of problems. Well, you've just stepped over. I mean, it's just.
Brothers, and one of the things that might be considered in this is maybe that the board members need to have more than one experience. So one experience whether it's positive or negative, doesn't tip the bias on how you're feeling. For instance, let's say that you were coming to the high school to see the high school experience. Maybe you could be more than one student. You could be a freshman, a senior, and you could be someone who's kind of on the art swing and someone who's in the music swing or athletic swing. I don't know what it is, but you're going to get probably a whole different set of experiences just doing that, and it may just kind of balance that out.
For the record, I'm saying.
Any other principals have anything to say?
I was gonna say on the flip side of that, I mean, secondary is very different than elementary. So in my personal opinion, knowing my staff, someone else coming in, they're gonna see it as an evaluation. And I know that that's not what it is, but the perception, I mean, they're nervous when we come in to their classrooms, and then you have a school board in there all day. I think in their perception, it can be very intimidating, even though that's not how the program is set up. But I think that that's how it will be received from them.
Or the dog and pony show starts. Because we all know that that's what happens sometimes in evaluations. Now, I mean, I think the theory is a great idea. I mean, I think the reality is kind of.
So I guess my wondering then is, if it's not from the board, maybe there's an opportunity for the campus principals to do it at their campus.
For sure.
Or assistant principals or admin to do it at their campus, and then maybe give us some insight. I know the unintended consequences that happen, because we can reach out, as you said, we can reach out to a student, but that's just that one student that's giving you that 30-second spill. That's to compare that to a full day immersion of like that. Those two things are two separate things. And then secondly, the other time we get feedback from parents or students is in a survey or an email. Again, that's really hard to get that full perspective. So that might be the happy medium then. Later on, Mr. G can discuss with the principals. Maybe that's something they would like to do.
This is where I go back to, you want student feedback. Why don't we have a work session where we bring in student panel and you to have a discussion with them? There's other ways to do it besides going in the classroom with the teacher.
But that's a very top layer feed. That's we're getting.
That's kind of where the board is supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying the whole reason I wanted to go into this was for us to build out a vision and goals to really make it something that involves the community as far as the full scope of things. I think, again, it's a creative way. It's not the only way, but to actually immerse yourself in that and to see what it's like to be a student.
I think there's a reason boards aren't doing it.
Yeah.
I know there's some board members who've done it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there's a reason that boards aren't doing it.
Why don't we, again, this is kind of a first blush
Yeah, yeah.
for everyone here.
Thank you.
Let's look at it, because we have to look at it with our team of 8 training. We have to look at it with goal setting. Setting a goal is one thing, the how. Dr. Wu's got to tell us, how do we measure that? And if this is a measure, it might be an appropriate measure. So I think something that we can certainly explore in the context of our discussion and responsibilities.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
That is the last item on our agenda. Does anyone have any other items they need to discuss, present?